Myself, I may not be a proponent of land, but I've made money in land in the past. I have made multiples in 2 years by just buying a piece of land. So I could be the last person to talk anything bad about land and real estate. But that is then. It is a decade ago, just when I left KU for my undergrad. Around that time, land was hot, and it was actually hot. We made money. Is that the case now? You tell me, because you have land. Try to sell it, and then we compare notes. And don't tell me about the value of your land. Tell me about the offers, credible ones. Because there's a whole difference between what you think your land is worth and what you can actually receive from a person who can actually buy it, not the one who thinks they can buy it. The second thing, both and fixing money is both sides of the same coin. Because both are lendings. Both are debts. Lending, fixing money in the bank, you are lending money to that bank. They actually compare it, your deposits, they take it as a liability, not as an asset. Because you have umekopesha, benki pesa. The other one of T-bills and bonds, you have given your money to government for a predetermined rate. So you are lending money to government. So both are the same. It is lending. And you only lend money when the other person has better use for it. It means when you are lending money to the bank through fixing it, and you are lending money to the bank through buying T-bills and bonds, you have admitted that those two institutions have better use for your money than yourself. So, that is the case. The third one is buying companies. But before I go there, because I'll be pretty short as I said, this issue of lending money to these two institutions, fixing and also buy T-bills and bonds, there is one fallacy that I want to dissuade us from. Fallacy of government never defaults. Government will always pay me my money because it's government. Yes. Because possibly in your investment lifetime, it has never happened. But remember, all the things that take too long to happen, when they happen, they actually happen. So, I'm here as a Kenyan in a country where we have 13 trillion in debt, national debt. Because those T-bills are what I'm talking about. Don't think I'm deviating from the speech. You might think, oh, he has now started those economics. No, I'm still on your bonds and T-bills. Because the accumulation of those are the ones we call national debt. So it is 13 trillion. 60% of that is your money. That is domestic borrowing. And they happen majorly in those two elements. 80% of that 60% is domestic debt. 80% of our domestic debt is owed to financial institutions. 80%. Households, who are me and you, is, I think, around 3% or thereabout. NGOs around 1%. So, we go back to the default setting. That's what I want us to analyze together because that's what we are doing here. So we are at 13 trillion because for the last 4 years we have borrowed more than 4 trillion. That's the reason why we are there. It's because for the last time from 2022, we have actually borrowed close to 4.5 trillion. So, 2002, debt is 600 billion. 10 years Kibaki goes, debt becomes 1.8 trillion. So he borrows 1.2 trillion in net terms. But the revenue grows by 5 times, from 200 billion to 1 trillion. There's a reason I'm saying that. Then from 2013, our debt grows from 1.8 trillion to 8.7 trillion. So in 10 years, we borrow 7 trillion. Our revenues in the same period grows from 1 trillion to 2. So the debt triples, more than triples, but the revenue doubles. So you can tell now, in that pace, who is actually a Kenyan Maradona and others. In that Boston Marathon, you can tell who is a Kenyan. The Kenyan there is the debt. A normal Maradona is the revenue. So the Kenya is way ahead. The other Maradonas are way behind in terms of the growth. So we are in 2022. Marathon is continuing. Debt grows from 8.7 trillion. We are now even not yet done with the first half, with 5 years. With 5 years. We are not done with 5 years. The debt is now 13 trillion. So we are in a race to borrow in 10 years. We are in a race to borrow in 5 years what we borrowed in 5 years, the previous government, what we borrowed in 10 years in the previous government, and now we are borrowing in a year what Kibaki borrowed in 10 years. Now, so, underline here, because that is we are still in boards. In your boards. We are still in your investments. So, the debt has grown from 8.7 to the interest rate alone, domestic. So, out of 100, we will be spending, if you include principal, 90 shillings out of 100 to service debt. So, to wrap up that story, so that I finish up with shares, that story is about Kenya, but you as an investor, you need to very fast find a friend from Ghana. Get a friend from Ghana and have a call after this session. And then recap the story I've given. It is definite. It's so definite. If we do not change course, what we think is a solid rock will soon disintegrate. Because how is that going to survive? How? So, I am foreseeing in the future, not very long future, a boardroom like this. The person who will be starting here is government. Not Ndindi Nyoro. Government. Have government as a person. The government will come and pick the microphone. And you'll be seated where you are sitting. The bank CEOs mostly will be in that table. Maiga and your team will be here. Because you must be in the front row to get the message correctly. Insurance companies will be there where there is microphones. And all of us as Kenyans will also be listening. Maybe the hall will be too small for all of us. Others will be out just listening. Hii mkutano ni ya nini? Then the program will start running like today. Let's have some brief remarks from the CEO of the group NMG. And after that, the main speaker, who is the government. The government will take the mic and tell you, good evening. It will be an evening that time, most likely. Because mornings are not made for those kind of news. Then they will come and tell you, I know and I agree. You are a good Kenyan. You gave me 1 million shillings last month because you bought treasury boards. And I'm very grateful because we were able to pay some recurrent expenditure which were really pressing us. And then the government will go ahead and tell you, you know, Kenya is for all of us. We all belong here. We are Kenyan and you are patriotic. And I want to commend you for your patriotism. And it's because of that patriotism, I come to request you, our debt is 13 trillion and 60% I owe it to you. But out of the interest rate I'm paying of 1.25, only 0.25 I am paying to external, because external debt is always cheaper. That's why you see 40% of our debt is only accruing to 50 billion of interest. But 60% of our debt is accruing a trillion in interest. So the government will now tell you, because wale wengine, si unajua ni external people, na hawatusikizi, they are hard, they are radicals, they are not listening to us. So let's leave them. We pay them their 250 billion every year. And that's the reason I called you as Kenyans. Let's see what we can do about this 1 trillion. Because there are some roads going to your home, and there is a school we went to for primary school. There is something we are doing about those two things. That's why we are requesting. We know for sure we owe you 1 million shillings. But because I'm the sovereign, on this Tuesday evening, we have just decided from our meeting as the government that out of this 1 million, we owe you 700,000. Then you start tapping your neighbor. Did you hear? Then the government will tell you, yes, I am very happy for your patriotism. Out of 1 million shillings, from today I owe you 700,000. In barbershop and salon language, we call that a haircut. And then they'll tell you, we know we also owe you to pay you next 6 months some money. We are requesting for the next 2 years, you may not hear from us. But immediately after 2 years, you start hearing from us. So you remember the boat you bought for 10 years? We have just made it 12 years. Only that for these 2 years in front of us here, don't wait to hear from us. Thank you for your attention to this matter. See you another day. Signed, the government. I know that sounds like a story. So after this, call your Ghanaian friend. And then make sure you call a pensioner who is also a Ghanaian. The ripple effect is that this money from financial institutions are deposits, which I have also lent to the bank as a deposit. I am not trying to paint a picture, but I would want all the experts here after we finish. Anyone with an answer to that, come and pick the mic. Tell me the alternative to that in the next in the next few years to come. Tell me. So we either change course as a country, or these boats we are holding, they are not worth what we are holding. Because the other alternative is to print money. Then print money. It is the same scenario. It lowers the quality of your money. So let me go now to the optimistic side. Shares, boats. I almost made a very gross mistake. Shares and equities, whatever name you may pick from it. So why do I prefer this, me as an investor, other than all the others I've given? Again, because of time. Around this time in Kenya, I think I'm well positioned. Shares, of course, you start by looking global. When you look global, Dow Jones is over 50,000 now. Within Iran, not outside of Iran, within the Iran issue, Dow Jones are now over 50,000, the index. Almost touching the record high, which it touched earlier this year. If you look at all the other indices in the US, some by yesterday touched the all-time high. That's good, it's fine. Because the stock market in the US always goes up. Forget about the bumps of recessions and hitting of the market. If you draw the graph, you smoothen it. It is upward all the time. Depends with what percentage. But that's not the point. So, the world has been expansionary during COVID time, then contractionary after COVID because of inflation. Before Iran, the world was expansionary. Expansionary meaning we were lowering interest rates everywhere. The last three, from before February, across the world, the Federal Reserves or the central banks were lowering interest rates, including ours, including the US, even with the push for more cuts by the executive there. Now, inflation has climbed. The only month we have measured very well after Iran, in Kenya, inflation is up. Inflation figures in Kenya will be coming out this weekend. Of course, you may expect something more than 7.5%. Most likely, definitely. So what does that mean when the next CBR is meeting? When the Federal Reserve meets in the US, the very best to accommodate the executive, the very best they can do is to sustain the rate. But that's not even feasible. The sensible thing is to raise. CBR is to raise. So we are back to contractionary. So we are back to contractionary, meaning interest rates will be going up. Revisit the issue of debt I talked about in your boards. Mimi nawapea two hints because you know at 11 mtaenda kufanya more homework. So we have now started a journey of raising interest rates. So that's contractionary monetary policy. Even if I'm talking about shares, that point lift it, take it back to Ghana, and start now doing it. Actuaries in the house, you go do your homework. With this raising of rates, with the other problem I described, then tell me where we are headed. And then tell me what you foresee in terms of subscriptions of boards and bills in the next few weeks. Then you make your decision. Let me go back to the equities. So PE ratio of the US market. Nimesema naenda hints because this fall is filled by people who should actually be holding the mic and me listening. So you are all well versed. PE ratio in the US market is over 27. If you bought all the US companies. Johannesburg could be maybe over 15, the PE ratio. Nigeria, maybe around 11. By the way, in this whole, do we all know what PE ratio is? Because I think I'm assuming too much. We know, eh? You know, I may start talking Greek, then I'm talking to myself. If you bought this hotel today at 10 million shillings, and the annual revenue is 1 million net revenue, how long would it take you to recover your money? Talk to me, guys. 10 years. That's the PE ratio. That's the PE ratio. If I bought Absa, Kenya today, and their net revenue, if I bought Absa for 100 billion today, and their annual net revenue is 10 billion, how long would it take me using what is called trading PE, the most recent trading PE, ile iko washatagaza tuseme ni 10. How long will it take me to recover my money that I invested in Absa? That's what is called PE, price over earning ratio, or market cap over net earnings. It will give you the same. If you bought all the companies listed in the US, their PE ratio is 27. It will take you 27 years. There are some that are low, but there are some that are people are buying future. Take Tesla. Tesla is over 200 PE ratio. Most tech companies have higher PE ratios because you are buying the future more than the present. JSC Johannesburg is around 17, maybe 15 to 17. Nigeria around 11. Kenya, the average PE ratio in the Kenyan companies is 5. So I'm starting here as a very patriotic Kenyan, that at the current moment, I don't know why I should not buy shares in Kenya, and I have no reason to buy in any other market, and I have actually no reason to care about what the government is doing, because some of the companies are too solid for any government to do anything.